Tony Joe. I am absolutely ecstatic to have our guest on the air today from Vancouver. He is known as the real estate guru, and many of you will recognize his name. It is Ozzie Jurock. Ozzie, thanks for coming on our show today.
Well, thanks for having me, but you got to remember, you see, I'm a legend, but I'm a legend in my own mind.
Okay. Well, listen, Ozzie, before we begin, I need to make sure that the listeners who aren't familiar with you know who you are. So I'm just going to read through a quick little bio. Your bio is long because you've done a lot of stuff. So first of all, Ozzie is a fellow of the Real Estate Institute of Canada. He's the president of Jurock Publishing, chairman of the Real Estate Action Group, chairman of Worldwide Referrals Realty. He's an author as well, too, and some of the things he's written include Forget About Location, 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 What, Where, When, and How to Buy Real Estate in Canada, the Real Estate Action Book. He's done motivational topics like Grow Into Your Future Best. He has been featured in a number of areas. For instance, he's been published in articles in the Vancouver Sun, Business in Vancouver, Calgary Herald, Edmonton Journal, the Globe and Mail, Western Investor, and dozens of magazines. He has been a regular on BCTV for 18 years as the real estate analyst. And he has appeared Saturdays on Money Talks with Michael Campbell on CKNW. Plus, he's been here on CFAX before as well. There's a lot more to tell about Ozzie, but Ozzie, again, thrilled to be here. Thrilled to have you here.
Well, me too. With that kind of an introduction, I'm looking forward to what I have to say myself.
Great. Hey, let's start with the Lower Mainland. And what are your thoughts about real estate and what's happening both in the Lower Mainland and also southern Vancouver Island here? Obviously, this is a Victoria station. So what are your thoughts?
Well, certainly we have seen a change in the marketplace. Look, we've had some almost 9 years of straight increases in value. We've had some spectacular rises in the single-family market and the condo market. And I guess since the stress test was brought in by our mortgage regulators, meaning that even if you qualify for a lower rate mortgage, you have to apply a higher rate. And that has knocked out, I would say, 20 or 25% of all the buyer countrywide. Mm-hmm. Unfortunate thing with that is, while they want to hit Toronto and Vancouver, they're really hitting the smaller markets as well. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not surprised to see across the board a sales decrease of about 20 to 25%. But when you consider the fact that we have had a straight huge rush forward, then maybe that's not too surprising, and maybe we need a little breather.
Yeah. I mean, it is very interesting because this has been a relatively long run. I mean, in all the years you've been doing this, because you've been in real estate for it's years, right? You know,
yeah, long time.
Yeah, and you know, you have seen things go up and down, but this has been a really long upwards run, hasn't it?
Yes, and there's no question it actually has been a relentless increase in values. It's funny, every single year we have a big conference in Vancouver. We call them Land Rush and the Outlook conferences. And we have 500 to 600 people there. And every year I talk about something that happened during the year that scares people to death. So we had the Russian crisis, the Asian flu, the Mexican crisis, currency crisis, Trump, my goodness, interest rates, and so on. And you know what? It doesn't really matter. If you just bought a property at any one time of those terrible times, whether it was the crash of 87 or the Ravi Batra threat of a deflationary collapse. In fact, I published the titles of 63 books that had in its heading crash, depression, deflation, and they all had one thing in common. Number one, they sold 1 million books, 1 million copies, which I kind of was envious of. But number two, they were all wrong, always. We started in 65 with an average price of $13,000. By 1998, we'd gotten to $278,000. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned to my readers in my book, as you kindly mentioned, forget about location. I'm not selling it, it's out of print. But at that time, I said if we kept on printing money for the next 35 years following 1998, as we did for the 35 years leading up to 1998, a relentless rise from 16,000 or so to 278,000. If we kept that going for the next 35 years, every house in Vancouver would be worth $6 million. And they thought I was nuts.
Yeah.
You know, last year the West Side hit 4 million. We're not yet to the end of that 35 years. So what happens is when money is created out of thin air and that money competes with your and my earnings and income, then it settles in hard assets, all hard assets. I mean, a painting in New York recently sold for $460 million. How ridiculous is that? Baseball cards are on $300,000.
Yeah.
Maybe a housewife out there goes and looks and buys and shops and knows that if a cauliflower is $8, when we look at parking, that's everything is higher because of the velocity of money.
Yeah.
And as long as they keep on doing it, we're going to have higher prices again in the future. But in between, we have some valley.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. There was an article that was posted, I think it was the Globe and Mail a week or two ago, about the fact that newspaper headlines from 1988, 86 or 88 were talking about the housing crisis and how, you know, prices were unsustainable in Vancouver. And we're looking at, like, the stories were identical 30 years ago. All you got to do is just change the numbers and the story is the same, right?
That's right. You're so right, Tony. I mean, I have just recently on April 7 at our Land Rush conference, I just showed headlines, you know. We will never see these prices again. We will never see this kind of a boom again. And I flipped the chart, and that was 1974, and the price was 54,000 in Vancouver, right? Yeah. Yes, we do have a propensity. Look, we have seen huge price increases. I think I hopefully explained one of the reasons. The macro reasons are inward migration. We are in a record immigration territory for British Columbia. I mean, last year we had an incredible record. I don't think we've ever had this kind of record. A total of some 65,900 people. That's what we grew by. Of those, there were some 49,000 people net international migration. Mm-hmm. I mean, consider that 50,000 people. You divide it by 2, and that's 25,000 families. That's 25,000 units that have to be built for either renting or selling. That props up any market. On top of that, a city like yours, Victoria actually is really well. I was talking to a fellow realtor. I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to mention him, but he's a great guy. I love him. He's my friend, Rick Hogendorn.
Oh, yes.
But he says Victoria is still a much of a seller's market, and it's a bargain out here to Vancouverites. He tells me that in May, so far, half of all the single-family homes in the core of Victoria sold over the list price.
Yes.
He gave me a house in his Primal that was listed at $799,000. Got 8 offers, 7 were unconditional, 3 were $100,000 about asking price, and it sold for $907,000. Yeah. And he has a couple of others. He says the average price is now $917,000 Victoria. That's up 10%. And so when we look at the world out there and we look at Vancouver, yes, some of those numbers, my goodness, I mean, West Van is terrible, right? Yeah. Because the average single-family home price was $182 for the month of March. This year it was $58. North Van, the average was $141. This year it's $70. Yeah. And so even it's clear we have decoupled somewhat from single family and condos, while the condo market in Surrey is booming. Yeah. The single family home is not. But it's price sticker shock.
Yeah. Well, and it's demand. So I mean, you don't have this sort of marketplace unless people want to buy properties. Right.
That's right. I mean, you know, we have, as I said, we have inward migration. And, you know, when you look at the macros, what reasons of why markets do well, number one, it is, are we in an inflationary world or deflationary world? And if a listener feels it's deflation, sell real estate and get out. But we've been there before. Mm-hmm. The predictors of deflation have been remarkably wrong year after year. Yeah. And so, number one, I think we have... I'll have some water.
Over.
We have some statistics. We have people that evaluate things. We have the economists. You know, Tony, economists are people that know 100 ways to seduce women, but they don't know any women, right? So when we look at our marketplace, right, you wonder what everybody is forecasting. People saying we're not affordable in Vancouver. Yeah. We're not affordable, Victoria. We have never been affordable for 35 years. Yeah. UBC produced statistics that showed that you need 65% of your income for a mortgage payment in Vancouver. So you want to live in Hong Kong, you want to live in New York, you want to live around the world.
A lot more than that, right?
You want to live in Vancouver, you've got to pay. Yeah. You've got to pay the price, right?
Exactly. Well, listen, we're on the air right now with Ozzie Jurock. We've got to take a quick little break here. Ozzie, what is the website that people can go to learn more about you?
Well, they can go to jurock.com, which is my last name, jurock.com. We're just putting out a new dispatch. We have over 5,000 people on it, and you can hear my quirky opinions by just signing your email. We don't want your first child's name. We just want your email. And then we'll leave you on there until you say, ow, I don't want to hear anymore.
Great. Well, listen, stay on the line there, Ozzie. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Now, The Whole Home Show with Tony Joe on CFAX 1070.
Hi there. Thanks for returning. You're listening to The Whole Home Show, and I'm Tony Joe. Our show is brought to you in part by Denise Webster, mortgage broker with Dominion Lending Services Modern Mortgage Group, Lori Zorn, insurance manager for Island Savings, and Carrie Smith, building inspector from Inspectec. Today, we're talking with the real estate guru, Ozzie Jurock. Ozzie, again, thanks for coming and joining us today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Always love to talk real estate.
Now, when we just took a break for our commercial, where we left off was you were talking about the fact that real estate in the Lower Mainland in Victoria and the Victoria area here have been expensive for 30 years. So this is a fact, right? Now, one of the things that that you hold every year is a conference. You had it in April. It's called Land Rush, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and you have something coming up called Outlook 2019, right?
Yes, we do that every year, and this one is going to be September 26th.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that. So who needs to know about Outlook, and what are the topics that you cover?
Well, the idea is that, and we have been doing this, believe it or not, for 23 years. And the thing also is that you can go to my YouTube page and look at some of the items that we published from when I was on BCTV, say in the year 2000 or 2001. And some of you will say, well, the guy is kind of boring, always says the same thing, prices are higher. But listen, prices have been higher. Yeah. And if you look at the basic reasons of inward migration, as I pointed out, if you look at the relentless, most unreported inflation of all time, I mean, we're talking about 2% inflation. Nothing that I buy only goes up 2%. Mm-hmm. And so when you take a look at that, we have become a city or the cities of the world where people want to be. Look, the organization of AFIRE, it's called the Association of Foreign Investment in Real Estate. This is a worldwide organization that measures where people should put their money. Now, Canada used to be number 11. You know what? We're now number 3. So number 1, for safety, they say the U.S. Number 2, Germany. Number 3 is Canada. Mm-hmm. So the investor there goes to his financial officer in London or in Dubai or wherever, and they say, where should I put some of my money? They say, well, take a look at Canada, the safest bank in the world. Mm-hmm. We always talk about Chinese investment, but do people really know that a German industrialist paid $432 million for the Royal Center in Vancouver, that we have dozens and dozens and dozens of corporations coming here from around the world investing, that West Vancouver is probably owned more by Iranians than it is by the Chinese investor. Mm-hmm. I mean, you add to all of those things going on in China, for instance, people always say, oh, they will not come. They will continue to come. In fact, now that President Xi has elected himself to a lifetime position, there's many individuals that might be worried a little bit that the controls would be too tight on business. I see actually more money coming here, not less. It's borne out by the numbers. And I like foreign investment because I know it's painful if you're not in the market, but it's not just the investment. Investment brings educated kids. They bring their money, they drive the real estate market, and that in turn drives furniture and storage and appliances and cars and all the thousands of things that we need to go for an economy. Yeah. For me, it's amazing that when governments look at our industry, 23 billion our annual GDP that sustains some 233,000 well-paying family-supporting jobs in this province, and we're continuously under attack. Yeah. And they're winning, right? I mean, more taxes continuously. I mean, it's unbelievable at what end the taxes come. So now sales are down 25% across the province. Yeah. And so if sales even go down, then maybe they bring about the very thing that they want to fight. And nothing is becoming more affordable with all those taxes.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing, too, because there are unintended consequences that come with all of these things, right? And we've seen this because since real estate is such an economic driver, if the government does artificially slow down the real estate market, it will start cutting back on those furniture sales and car sales and all those things. People work in those jobs and in those businesses. It could have the consequence of putting people out of work, right?
No question about it. I mean, I am with government to say I'm not against, say, a foreign buyer's tax. I mean, Australia has put one in. We have around the world.
It's usual.
It's I did. Yeah, I went on a 3-month trip around the world, and whether you were in Sydney or whether you were in Auckland or whether you were in London or whether you're in Berlin, prices are rising. Mm-hmm. But I think that the reason is worldwide is, number one, there is so much money around. Corporations are gushing cash, individuals are gushing cash, and they're getting 1% in the bank. So they're looking at other investments, and right now their investment of choice in the big cities is real estate. When you take a look at our prices, right? So right now in Vancouver, we are about between $1,000 and $1,300 a foot for a condominium.
Yeah.
In the Fraser Valley, we've gone from about maybe $400 2 years ago to where we're now over $600 on low-rise and over $800 on high-rise. Well, the market is decoupling condos and
detached.
houses.
Yeah.
That's right, attached, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. We're on the line right now with Ozzie Jurock, a real estate expert and specialist from Vancouver. Now, Ozzie, we're talking about values going up and the importance of investment and, what we see as far as European investment is concerned. Now, this is of little comfort to people who are struggling to get into the market, and these are the people right now who are very vocal saying, this is unsustainable. I will never be able to afford a home in Vancouver or Victoria. What is the solution for these poor people? And I don't mean poor by money. I mean poor by situation.
No.
Right?
I mean, I remember, I've been in it, like you said, you pointed out so kindly that I'm an old guy. I've been around for a long time. Yeah. We have never been affordable. That's the point I'm trying to make. It doesn't matter whether the house was $300,000 and what we earned at the time was hard to pay that mortgage for. On top of that,
this is nothing new. It's not like a new thing that has popped up all of a sudden, right?
No, it isn't. Not that we shouldn't be doing something about it, and not that we could do something about it. I mean, you have all sorts of solutions that are out there that governments are analyzing. Nobody is at fault here. But the key is this, that we as a population always want more than we're willing to pay in taxes. So what governments do, because they're only elected every 4 years, and that's the same in the United States or anywhere else in the world, we print the money. We don't print it anymore. We're very sophisticated. We call it QE1 and QE2 and QE3. We flood the market with money, make that money available at unconscionably low interest rates. I wrote a story 2 years ago where I blamed Polos entirely for the housing crisis. On the one hand, he's worried about high indebtedness. On the other hand, he makes it so easy to borrow money that people get sucked into this home equity loans and so on. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that it wasn't affordable. Even when the house was $20,000, I couldn't afford it. Yeah. When I was president of Royal LePage in Toronto, I had 10,000 employees. I was on national TV, and I saw 12% was a good mortgage rate.
Yes, yeah.
Today, we're worried about 3.1 or 3.2%. Yeah. Not that we ever get back to 12, but I'm just saying there have been tough times before. Yeah. And I tell you one thing I've heard as a realtor, as an analyst and a reporter all my life in BC. The three things. Number one, there's too many realtors in the business. Number two, young people can no longer afford it. And number three, I wish I bought 5 years ago.
Which is the same story every year, right?
Same story for 30 years. Yeah. And when you look at, say, 2008, what a tough time it was.
I remember.
And the world was terrible. On 9/11. Yeah. And we had conferences all the time. We usually have 10 to 12 speakers that look at specific things in the world. I mean, look, in our business, what you need is a quality realtor. You need a Tony and you need a Rick Hogan. You need people that are in the business that eat, breathe, and sleep it, that you can trust. You need a quality mortgage brokers. Most people don't know that. A lot of the mortgage brokers today don't have access to all of the funds. And some of the restrictions that we have now facing by government regulation and mortgage regulation, you need a quality, absolute quality professional, particularly in investment real estate. And it's throughout everything. You need to do some work. It's that four-letter work we don't like. I mean, there's no magic that says, here is a wonderful deal just for you. No, you've got to choose it out.
There's no giveaways for sure. You brought up a really interesting point, and we don't need to go that far back. 2008 and 2009. Some of the listeners here may remember. I was there, and I remember at the time, people who had houses in South Oak Bay, which is, as you know, Ozzie, a prime location here in Victoria, they could not sell back in 2009. So a question is, why didn't people buy at that time? It was an opportunity. It was a time where people could have said, oh, my goodness, now's my time to own that house. But nobody did because people were afraid. And, of course, now, 9 years later, we look back and there's going to be a lot of people out there that say, I should have done something. The I should have, right?
Well, the thing is, it's human nature. I mean, Warren Buffett says, when everybody's yelling, sell, you should buy. And everybody is yelling, buy, you should sell. It's sort of a philosophy that we come in and often we forget it's a cycle. If I'm buying a house for myself to live in, what should I look for? I want an environment for my kids. Where are the schools? Where can I learn stuff? Is there a swimming pool close by? What am I looking at?
Amenities.
How much do I have to pay? Yeah, the things that make my life, not just how much money am I going to make, is it going up?
For sure. Well, listen, Ozzie,
Ozzie,
hold that thought. We got to take a quick break here. I'm on the line with Ozzie Jurock, and you can find more about Ozzie on jurock.com, Jurock. Ozzie, we'll be back in just a sec.
This is The Whole Home Show with Tony Joe on CFAX 1070.
Hi there. Thanks for coming back. You're listening to The Whole Home Show, and I'm Tony Joe. We're on the line right now with Ozzie Jurock. Ozzie, before the break, we were talking about what people are looking for when they're buying properties, and we left off with the point that you're buying amenities and not necessarily the investment aspect of your house, right?
Yeah, that's secondary, and that's what I think for myself. I like to buy a house. I also like to go long on my mortgage. I know most mortgage brokers going to give me a hard time. They're saying, for the last 10 years and that. I think that we're in for higher interest rates. And I think if I can get a fine 5-year mortgage at about 3.5%, I'm not exactly sure what the rate is in Victoria, but somewhere around there, I'm still very close to lifetime lows. And I would go 5 years' time. Now, if I'm an investment investor, absolutely you must lock yourself in because we think the United States, I predicted it last year, the United States and Canada would go up at least to 2%. So Canada went up 3 times. You'll have another quarter before June. So we'll probably in the next little while, if the overnight rates are that, your bond market is already moving. And then on top of that, of course, you have to qualify at a stated bank rate and you have to add to that the stress test. I think the higher rates will also soften them. We projected 20% of the sales to decline just because of the stress test.
Yeah.
So when you add it all up, I want to sleep at night. And when you have an investment real estate, you want to keep it for 5 years, tie your mortgage for 5 years. You want to keep it for 3 years, tie it for 3 years. But forever, how long you want to do that?
Yeah.
My partners and I, we're buying a lot in the United States, and we're involved in a consortium, and we're buying the big buildings. We always go long on the mortgage because I want to sleep at night.
Security.
I want to make sure that, it's security. And we're using our homes too much as speculation. I'm also a little bit worried. People go and use their home equity loan more as to, maybe I can buy a new car with it. That was never the idea.
Or pay off credit cards or something.
Yeah, that's not. It's become your own private bank. Now that's going to stop. I think this will be the next thing our governments will attack. They'll say, okay, we won't have those home equity loans anymore to the same extent, or you have to qualify much harder. And so the world is about to change for a while, but I'm absolutely convinced in the long run, if we keep on printing money, it'll settle down in higher values on everything.
Yeah. I want to just point out on your website, Ozzie, you talk about hot deals, and we're not talking about just in Vancouver or Victoria. You highlight property deals. I saw like 100 Mile House, a few other areas as well, too. Tell us more about that.
Well, every week I'm on a Michael Campbell show. That's on my 25th year. And I'm only on, say, 3 or 4 minutes. That's on CKNW. Oh, I'm not allowed to say another.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
But Michael Campbell has been, he's probably, no question about the best business show. He talks about gold, silver, and all of that stuff. Yeah. And I have my real estate section. And part of that, we dissect the taxes and we dissect the future and make predictions. But I always, every week, pick something that I think qualifies in my mind as a hot property. Last week we had a $1.9 million house in Vancouver that had been reduced to 1.7 with 7 bedrooms and suites. And for Vancouver, it was a hot property. In Victoria, we've had fantastic properties like suites a year ago, or we go out of town. Like you said, we just had a motel for $390,000 with 9 units and 15 acres. And like something that's quirky. Because we forget the world does not end in Vancouver or Victoria. There are some great deals out there on Vancouver Island in the smaller communities and throughout British Columbia. My goodness, you can go to Houston and buy a $50,000 5-bedroom house.
Yeah. And so basically it's expanding your horizons and looking outside, right?
Yeah, you betcha.
Yeah. So let's talk about BC. Let's chat more about British Columbia and what opportunities exist and the state of what's happening here in the province.
Well, one thing we have to remember, British Columbia is situated in such a way that you can do in the morning your business with Europe and in the evening you can do your business with China. There's very few places in the world you can.
Good point.
We see a huge power shift from east to west. We have most of the financial institutions have now their major outlets in Vancouver. Vancouver is becoming an incredible center for movie making. We're second now. We've beaten now New York. We're just behind LA, and not that much anymore. Mm-hmm. We have so much going on. We are, for 16 years, we have grown into something entirely separate. High tech, the movie industry, export, and construction. We have a diverse and we have a roaring economy. There's a reason why Amazon put in there a new building here with 3,000 new employees. Our GDP is going to be 3.5% in 2018. That's the strongest GDP growth in all of Canada, and we combine that with the lowest unemployment rate and the highest job growth in the country. Now think about that, particularly all of us that are a little negative and we're worried. Hey, immigration at the incredible numbers that I mentioned earlier will be adding, a lot of people, a lot of money, a lot of employment into the marketplace. And so the Credit Union Central is forecasting a housing start at about 32,000. That will be one of the highest we've had since the 80s. And they forecast the next 3 years that building is going to continue. So, yes, we have a downturn in the single-family home market. Yes, West Vancouver and the West Side particularly got hit, but then they were the most expensive. If you go from 2.2 million to 2.8 million, well, But in Surrey, single-family, my real estate company, we sold some pre-sales 2 years ago, and some of those condominiums, in the Surrey area, have done extremely well, and they will continue to do well because they're affordable. 1,200 people a month move there. So you want to look at where's the population going. Victoria is an absolute destination for anybody over 55 in the rest of Canada. More people trying to get to Victoria, right? And so we're going to have a very bright future.
It's not just those people who want to come to Victoria. The other thing, too, is those people are competing also with the younger families who have sold out of the Lower Mainland and have decided to come here for the pace, getting their kids into school without huge lineups and things like that. So that's another driver that's happened here in Greater Victoria as well, too.
No question. I mean, Rick, at one of our club meetings, he picked houses in Vancouver for $1.7 million, and you wouldn't believe the shacks he found for $1.7 million.
Yeah.
He then took a Victoria mansion and said, that's what your dollar will buy here. Yeah. You still have a seller's market in Victoria, and while 900,000 seems like a lot, of course it's a lot. Yeah. But in the scope of things of being a major city and the lifestyle, do you know, Tony, the whole world is sitting in immigration offices hoping to get a business immigration visa or any immigration visa, just to get an appointment. And we are already here.
Well, so here's the thing. Like we talked about before, all what we're talking about here right now is great news from an investor standpoint, but it is a little comfort for those who are angry about the fact that they can't buy real estate. And I get what you were saying earlier, which is this is nothing new. I mean, there have been people that have been unhappy about not being able to own almost since the beginning of time. What is the solution for them? Like, if people want to own, is it possible that they need to start looking outwards? It can't be the West Side in Vancouver, or it can't be Oak Bay here in Victoria, right?
Yeah, and the fact, Tony, is it never was. You see, it's something new. Whenever you see any kind of a forecast that bases it on rental income or rents to be paid versus values, it just doesn't work, because you can have the perfect rental value if you move to Fort St. John or if you walk to a small town, but we don't want to. We all be in the same spot. We want to be in the same area. Well, because of that demand, prices go up. Yeah. But you don't have to go too far up island not to get good values. I mean, you have a condo market all over the island where 200,000 buys you something. Yeah. We actually, at our conference, found 100 properties under $100,000 throughout British Columbia, including some on Vancouver Island, that are perfectly good to live in for a young couple.
Yeah.
And so we sometimes forget that, the world isn't just starts in Victoria and ends in Vancouver. We have a marvelous province with a marvelous environment. I, for instance, spend my winters in Kimberley. I have a house. A beautiful house there for $300,000 right on the ski hill. We have a lot of families from the Lower Mainland that say, you know what, I'm going to cash out my wartime bungalow, and I move to these glorious environments in the Rockies. And that's the same on Vancouver Island, where you have ski resorts, you have golf, you have everything around you from a lifestyle perspective. Downtown Vancouver is not everything, and downtown Victoria is not everything either.
Yeah, good point. We're on the line right now with Ozzie Jurock in Vancouver. Ozzie, by the way, Money Talks does air here on CFAX Saturdays from 8:30 to 10. So, again, you're a familiar voice to our listeners here without question. Getting back to the event as we start to wrap up here, you talked a little bit about Land Rush and about your other event that's coming up in 2019. Is it something that some of our listeners should consider attending or looking into?
We usually have between 50 and 100 people attend from Victoria. The newsletter, I've just put it on for 25 years. I've been writing a forecasting newsletter about it. But this year, I'm taking a sabbatical. I spend a lot of time.
Well, aren't you? Surely you have a lot of free time, Ozzie.
Yeah, well, not so much anymore. But the point is this, that yes, I think it's worthwhile to go to one place where you can have 25 sponsors that show you everything from the best mortgage to the best insurance. I mean, insurance is a science to itself, particularly on investment real estate. And the forecasting we do usually is in the fall of the previous year. So this conference is about 2019, but we're holding it on September 22nd, 2018. So
where's that going to be, by the way?
It's going to be at the Renaissance Hotel, or rather now it's the Marriott Waterfront
in Cole Harbour.
Hotel on Hastings in Cole Harbour.
Yeah.
And, people come back and they're saying that is really one of the conferences. If I had just bought anything at those conferences, I would have done very well.
Mm-hmm. And again, people can find more details about this on jurock.com, right?
Yeah, so go into our dispatch and we'll send you some information. We don't, by the way, hammer you with a lot of information, but we do send you a hot property every week. It's free. All you have to do is ask for this, and we send you the contact information. We send you everything, my blog, which is sort of a quirky thing, what I read, what I listen to, and what I'm thinking about. And it may be interesting to you, and it may not be, right? I said, quirky is the word, right?
Good.
But we try to have fun. We live in such a serious world, and we forget that we absolutely live in paradise.
Speaking of quirky, I believe I've seen a picture of you dressed as Doctor Who walking into a TARDIS.
Well, of course, doesn't everybody?
Yeah, but I think you were dressed as the fourth Doctor. You must be a Tom Baker fan.
Well, of course. Look, my whole family, my son...
I know. Your son and I are both science fiction fans, yeah.
That's right, a sci-fi real estate guy. And my grandson, one of the grandsons from my daughter, he won the first prize in Seattle at one of those science fiction shows, being dressed up as Yoda. So we have a very quirky family.
Yeah, very good, very good. Oh, my goodness, Ozzie, it's been great chatting with you. There's so much more we can talk about. I'd love to have you back here on the show if you come back on at a future date.
Sure, we'll do that.
Yeah, perfect. Again, let's tell the listeners how they can reach you and contact information.
Well, the most important thing is just go to the website, jurock.com. We're redesigning it. We have a whole number of different websites that are merging into one. Just put your email into what we call dispatch. And then, again, we only send you stuff that you want. We never sell your names, and all you get is stuff from me. We'll talk about events that are coming up. Then I'm talking in Victoria, for instance, would also be there. So, and we hope to see you there.
Very good. Thank you. Ozzie Jurock from Vancouver, author. He is someone who has a huge amount of history and knowledge and experience in the real estate sector locally here in the Lower Mainland area. Thank you, the listeners, for joining in with us this week. I'm Tony Joe here on The Whole Home Show. We'll be here for you again this time next week.